I'll turn it over to our presenter for today. Her name is Trina Schutte. She is behavior and autism consultant at Ripley-Ohio-Dearborn Special Ed Cooperative. And thank you very much for doing this today, Trina.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Catherine said, my name is Trina Schutte. Today, we are going to be discussing preparing for the inevitable, which is change. I think change is always a part of our life, but this is especially true in the current world where coronavirus seems to not only be impacting our lives on a daily basis, but it's having an impact on us on an hour by hour and even a minute by minute basis. Change can be hard for most people, but change is especially hard for those individuals who are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. So why is change so difficult? I think in order for us to start discussing how to prepare for change, I also think it's important for us to begin by talking about why change is so difficult for individuals with autism. One of the primary diagnostic criteria for autism spectrum disorder is the individual shows restricted, repetitive patterns of behavior or interests or activities. So one of the key evidence to support this diagnosis is that insistence on sameness and inflexibility to the adherence of routines. And this can come down to even the most minute details like where certain toys should be placed, what type of socks we are going to buy and are willing to wear, types of foods we are going to eat at what specific mealtime and in what order that we're going to eat them, or perhaps the household routine on a Friday night and how that routine should go every Friday night. This insistence on routine and sameness, like these I just mentioned, they are categorized as obsessive and compulsive. And any small deviations from what is considered the norm can be undetectable by most people, but it can result in some enormous anxiety for individuals with autism spectrum disorder. This anxiety can lead to a wide range of behaviors that can shut down our plans entirely for the evening or just get us off track for a while. So that's what makes it so important for us to learn how to prepare for change. Common changes that occur are changes in our daily routine. This can include a wide variety of changes, such as dad coming home from work 15 minutes later than what he normally does on a Friday. It can be mom getting a new job that changes her shift. So now maybe instead of working second shift, we're working first shift. Sister heading off to college, which is one that happens a lot right now, and they're removed from the daily routine. It even could be something as small as a newscaster changing on the 5 o'clock news. Specific clothing or food is no longer available. From a personal standpoint, I have a son right now where Hanes premium socks that we have always wore and have always purchased from Target are suddenly no longer available at Target or anywhere else, not even on Amazon. Change of school, teacher, doctor, therapist, moving to a new home, taking a vacation. Sometimes this change in vacation is just simply the daily routine being disrupted, but other times it can be because you're choosing a vacation spot that is different than what we've normally done in the past. Maybe we're making a change from a beach vacation on the Atlantic Ocean to a beach vacation on the Gulf side. Loss of a family member, a friend, divorce or separation, maybe a new baby in the family. You'll see that I've left 2 blanks here, and these represent those changes that we can think of that are common in each of our lives. So I'd like to take a moment to shoot into the Q&A box and give us some ideas about some changes that are considered normal in your household or your life that occurs and are common?
Okay, just to let you know, Trina, we have a couple that people have put in there. Driving a different route when coming home a different way. Somebody has put, yeah, that's a problem for a lot of the students that we work with. Wearing a mask, very topical at the moment. And restaurants being closed on days they're usually open because of COVID.
Those are all good ideas. And I know in my personal area, the roads, one which I actually hadn't thought of, but we have several roads that are closed down right now and routes are being changed. So that would definitely be one that would throw us off when we have to have that, that change in a route from what we always do. So now we're going to move on to why we're really here, is how to prepare for that change. Preparing for that change, one of the first things that we can do is find out the details about those specific changes that are going to be happening. So as a parent or a caregiver, it is important to be proactive in finding out what is involved for that specific change that's occurring in your child's life. For instance, you may be aware that your child's teacher plans to go on some form of sick leave and is going to be replaced by a long-term sub. But maybe the only information that you have is you know there's going to be a long-term sub, and that's about it. So what you need to do is you need to get a hold of that teacher and talk to that teacher and find out what changes are actually going to be taking place during this time and what's going to be involved. Questions you could ask could be things like, what is the name of your replacement? Or has my child even met this individual before? Because if they haven't met the individual, that can be very difficult for them. And if they haven't met them, ask, is it possible for us to set up a meeting with this person so my child can meet them? Right now, that's a little bit harder. Some of the face-to-face, I know in our area, has been cut down. But virtual meetings like the one we're doing today, maybe that is a possibility in making that meeting occur and getting to know each other. For me personally, as someone who is taught in the classroom, I can sit here and confidently say today that each person that's involved in your child's classroom and in his or her education, they want to help you with that change. So talk to the teacher, all those people involved, teacher, principal, paraprofessionals, perhaps the occupational therapist or the speech and language pathologist that maybe work with your child in that school setting. They want your child to be prepared for changes just as much as you do, and they are going to help you in any way possible to process that. Another way for preparing for that change is front-loading your child. So front-loading means that you're preparing them for those changes that ahead of time that you know are going to occur. So this preparation can occur in many different ways, and it should be individualized to meet your specific child's needs, because what they need for that preparation in the front loading, each child is different. So for some individuals, it may mean sitting down and talking about those specifics in a very detailed manner and providing all the details that are a part of the change. Some individuals do not need all the details. They just need to know that it's going to happen. So we may need to be brief with them. We may need to mark the date on the calendar so they know exactly what date that's going to occur. And for others, it's just a Post-it note with a reminder that that change is going to occur. I think the important thing here when we're front loading is to know that there's no just one and done with it when you're front loading your child. This means that you need to continue to review that this change is going to happen and it's going to occur, and provide that multiple times. So revisit the calendar, revisit the Post-it note, revisit that discussion, and revisit, revisit, and revisit again, because this repetition of the front loading can be an important aspect. That may be what your child needs. Also, it's involving the right people. So this means that everyone that is involved in the change is part of the preparation for that change. So if your child is making a change in caregivers, for example, then staff from both of those settings need to be involved in that process. Another example from an educational standpoint would be moving from an elementary school setting to a middle school setting, which is something that's happening at this time of the year a lot. This is a big change, and all staff members should be part of the change. It shouldn't be just the outgoing educator or the incoming educator. It needs to be everyone. It needs to be those paraprofessionals, because a lot of times those paraprofessionals are going to change as they change schools. There are many aspects to making changes successful when we're going from one school to the next. So we need each one of those people to be involved in that process. Social stories. Social stories are great for change preparation. If you don't know what a social story is, they're a short description of a particular situation or event that includes the specific information about what to expect in that situation and why you should expect that. It presents information in a more concrete way that can assist in a person's understanding of that difficult situation. Like this one we have here on the screen. My teacher is having a baby. This happens quite a bit. The great thing about social stories is they can be adapted to meet the specific needs for each individual and the situation that's going on. And when we provide this information, like what might happen in this particular situation here with the teacher having a baby, we can provide guidelines, what the expectations are, and we increase the structure for that individual, and we can reduce the anxiety that they're going to experience from these changes. There are books out there with social stories that are already created. Out on Amazon, you can find many books out there on Amazon. You can find them already made up on Pinterest. You can find them presented as a video on YouTube, and you can even create your own. And I have to say about social stories, they are just like front loading. It's not a one and done. We have to plan how often and where the story is going to be reviewed, and even what person is going to be reviewing them. So somebody has that responsibility and they're aware that they're responsible for reviewing that social story with the child. We have a video we're going to share today with you, what a social story would look like. Our very popular topic as we're coming back into the school world is wearing a mask, and that is difficult. That is a huge change for many individuals. So we're going to take a moment and we're going to listen to this.
Wearing a mask, a social narrative for children. Sometimes adults and kids need to wear masks to protect other people from getting sick. This might be something new for me. Masks might feel kind of uncomfortable at first, but I will get used to it. Even when I wear a mask, it is still important to stay 6 feet away from other people. It is still okay to touch and hug my family. I usually don't need to wear a mask in my home or my yard. If I go to a store or to an appointment, I need to wear a mask. If I go somewhere with my family and there are other people around, I should wear a mask. A mask can protect other people if I cough or sneeze. It will also protect me from others. It is still important to wash my hands or use hand sanitizer. Doctors are working hard to find ways to make COVID-19 go away. Once it is gone, I won't need to wear a mask anymore. Wearing a mask is different, but it will be okay.
This is a particular story that I am currently using with one of our students that will be coming back into the classroom here in the next week to 2 weeks. This student and his parent and myself have been working together so we can practice that wearing a mask and understand the importance, not only for him, but also for him seeing that in others, because that's also an aversion and a change that he is seeing as he's starting to get out of the household, is that other people have masks on, and that's not something he's been seeing in his own home. So this has been practice in action, so to speak, over the past couple of weeks as we prepare for school to start and him wearing that mask in the school setting. Next up, we finally have visual supports, which are extremely important for preparing for changes. There are a wide variety and types of visual supports out there that can assist your child with change. I can tell you personally, I am all about the visual supports and getting them out there for the students and our children. When creating this slideshow, I put the hearts on there, showing my love of visual supports. However, my son told me that it was very cheesy. So welcome to my cheesy world today. First up on those visual supports are visual schedules. They provide the structure that individuals with autism spectrum disorder need. They reduce anxiety, but they also teach flexibility in our schedules. There are a wide variety of visual schedules out there that can be used, but the most important thing is to use a schedule that best suits your child's need, because each child and individual is different in what they're needing in their visual schedule. So you can see on here, this one is as simple as a Post-it note in the top left-hand corner. That schedule is just written down very quickly, placed wherever needed, and it can be checked off, marked off, and followed. Right next to that, we have a First Then visual schedule. This is available on Android devices, iOS devices. So it is digital. So if you have an iPad or a phone, this can be placed on there and used. The one on the bottom right is also another app that can be used that breaks it down into morning, afternoon, evening by date. Also available, I believe, on Android and iOS devices. We also have on the bottom left something some individuals need that check off. They need it in their hand. They need those pictures to follow their schedule, and that's available too. This particular one here that is available out on Teachers Pay Teachers. For those Indiana residents, Patents Project is a website. There will be a link at the end. You can borrow apps. They have a lending library, and you can borrow apps and test them out, take them for a trial run, because you may think the First Then visual schedule is what your child needs, but then you find out, oh, that's not quite working. What else do we have out there? So you can trial another one till you find the right one, and then you can make that purchase for your device and have it in hand. Saves money versus spending $10 for an app and it not be what your child needs. Individualization needs, doesn't meet those needs. When we're using visual schedules, the surprise card is an important piece of indicating change that's going to happen. It's used in conjunction with the visual schedule, and it's used to communicate that full, schedule change and promoting flexibility. We have a couple over here of what it looks like. Perhaps it's just the question mark on their schedule. Could be something really cutesy like the box that we have here, that there's a surprise activity, or it can be something as simple as a star with it says surprise on it. That was one that I quickly made up within a minute's time and threw it on here. So it can be anything. The key is that it does indicate that there is going to be a change in the schedule. So when we're using the surprise cards in conjunction with those visual schedules, we want to first create our card to find out what's going to represent that change. Then we're going to teach our child to recognize that this card and what it means. We'll add surprise cards into his or her visual schedule at first for only those positive changes only. And once that child or individual is comfortable with those positive surprise cards being in their schedule, then we'll start using neutral surprises, and we'll practice on those. A neutral surprise is something that I don't care less. It's not positive, it's not negative, it's just that somewhere in the middle. We'll work on those. We get our child comfortable with those, and then when we start moving into some of those negative surprises that may be a little bit more difficult. An important aspect of this is to not introduce a new type of surprise card until your child is comfortable with the one they are currently on. Other types of visual supports for supporting change. Right now, I mentioned before the changing from an elementary school setting to a middle school setting, or from middle school to high school. We want our child to be able to see that new building, but a lot of schools are not letting individuals in that building right now. So what can we do? Well, maybe we can take a video tour of the new school building. Perhaps the principal or the teacher would take us around and do a FaceTime call with us, and we can do a tour of what that new building is going to look like, where our locker is going to be, where our classroom's at. We can do the same if we're having a move. We can tour a new home that way. Before we're taking this individual to that new home, we can make a video tour of it. New physicians' offices, hospitals. Technology really provides the opportunity for us to preview a tour of virtually anywhere. That could even be if we're going on a vacation and we're making a change. We could possibly tour where we're going just via that video technology. Digital meetings, like we're doing today, we can meet a new teacher, a new doctor, new classmates. Even if we have new siblings coming in our family and they're going to be coming home, maybe we can have a digital meeting before coming home so they can meet that new sibling. We can do the same for new pets. So where do I find all these resources that we talked about today? So first of all, we have the Indiana Resource Center for Autism. They have a great spot on their website for visual supports. That link is here. Many, many resources out there. I talked to you earlier about the Patents Lending Library that provides resources for us to check out, and apps are part of that. Here is the website for that. Mask video that I had earlier in here. Here's the website, so we can check that out. Going to Pinterest. Teachers Pay Teachers is a website where we can pay for some things. There are a lot of free things out there as well, as far as visual schedules and visual supports. You can even only search for the free stuff. But there's many things out there that we can purchase and buy. Also, ask your child's teacher for what resources they could have that they could provide you, or maybe contact your local special education cooperative. I know myself, I'm going to move to the next slide for this. For myself, for individuals within our special education cooperative, I've created my own Google website where we can go out there, and it's for teachers so I can share with them, but it also provides those visual supports that are ready available that students are using in the classroom. They're things we've already made and they're out there for teachers, and those are things that we can also share with our parents so they have those ready available. When they want those, it's an easy share with them so they can go out there and find it. So questions? This, as we're waiting and anybody's out there typing, once again, I am Trina Schutte. This is I have my email address up here. So if there's anything that you particularly would like to ask me or would like to get in contact with me about, you can contact me at that email address. Also, the telephone number on here is the number to our special education cooperative that I work at, and I can be contacted at that number as well.
Thank you, Trina. We do have some questions coming in here in the Q&A box. So that is the place for those of you that joined late to type your questions in. One question I kind of think you already answered is where can people get help writing a social story for their child? You mentioned some of the resources there. I just wanted to let everybody know those will be sent out to everybody that attended the webinar. Through email. We'll send a list of all those resources that Trina mentioned. And if you look in the chat box, one of my colleagues, we have a lot of staff here in the background today, has put in there a specific link for some social narratives that are linked to COVID situations and things that are going on at the moment, social situations. Was there anything more you wanted to say about getting help with social stories, Trina?
I think using your search engine for one out there, putting in a particular social story. If there's something specific topic that you are looking at, throwing that in your search engine, you will get a lot. We talked about Pinterest. Pinterest will find you a lot of ideas. Some of them are paid ideas that may go out to teachers, pay teachers. Others are free ideas. I love YouTube because just like the wearing the mask social narrative that we just used in this video here, it was ready available. Type in there what you're looking at for COVID, wearing a mask, a new baby. There'll be many things come up. I would caution you, if that's what you're going to do, definitely preview it, making sure that it fits your situation and is going to fit the needs for your child, because once again, we want that to be individualized to the child that we are going to be using that social narrative for.
Okay, thank you. There was kind of a linked question to that, so I'll mention it now just in case you have any more resources. Somebody wanted to find resources for social stories that are for young adults. So not so cartoony was something that they mentioned in there. Did you have anything, ideas about that? I had some ideas that I can talk about as well.
I don't have very specific ones. I know probably asking your child's teacher or perhaps a speech language pathologist is also a great resource. I do a lot of typing on mine because I am a proponent of being individualized to the situation. So I put a lot of very specific real pictures possibly in there when I'm typing them up. So I would say using those individuals as a resource is a good place to start if there's something that you need. Any of the speech language pathologists within our cooperative are more than happy to help parents by creating a very quick social story that fits the situation that you're needing it for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. And a couple of things I found when working with teens and young adults is sometimes if you make the thing black and white rather than color, sometimes they will reject color pictures because they perceive them as being more appropriate for younger kids. So that's one tip I would use. You can also use just Google Images, like Trina said, to find things that are age appropriate. The other thing I found is really effective is don't call it a story with those folks, you know. So sometimes with the younger kids, you'll say, you know, story about riding the bus or something. If you call it story, some of those teenagers will reject it because they will perceive it as babyish for them. So I'll say things like information about riding the bus or wearing a mask or that kind of thing. And sometimes that can really help as well. Somebody wants to know if masks are it's not really kind of in your topic area, so feel free to throw that back. Are masks really required? Maybe you can talk about your district for special kids. Do they have to wear a mask?
I'm going to go ahead and talk about my district because that has definitely been a very popular question with parents, also with teachers. There are a lot of parents who are wanting their child to wear a mask, but they would like for the teacher to work on that because they're not going to start off that way. So maybe they're working on them. There are some that cannot wear them due to they're medically fragile, and that's just not going to work. And others we're going to have refusal. And within those guidelines that have been set forth as far as wearing masks, there is a specific, I cannot quote it right off the top of my head right now, but it does fit the category for a lot of our students, for especially like autism spectrum disorder. It can fit within there as that being a reason, a particular reason for not wearing the mask. And that's how it's being approached with in our district. I also know that for us, I do believe that that's what's going to occur. I don't know it's 100% yet, but we are looking at possibly that's going to go in the IEP as something we are doing for that specific student.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well, is that just having a disability isn't enough to have you not wear a mask. There has to be specified what are the issues around that disability that cause this person to not be able to wear a mask. Okay, another question. Somebody said their child struggles with changes that happen in school during the day. What would you advise that the teacher can do to help with that?
One of the very first things that I go with is, and I ask teachers when I'm working with them, is are they using a visual schedule within that classroom setting? Visual schedules are important. They are something that we can use from a preschool setting up to that high school senior. We just switch how they look and individualize to them. If that teacher is not using a schedule and using it appropriately, that will cause problems with changes within the day. One of the things that I can say about those visual schedules and what often occurs in home and at school is, great, Johnny is using the schedule, he's got it down, he knows where he's going, he knows when his class period is, and all of a sudden we take that schedule away from him because Johnny knows what he's doing. That's kind of like, I have glasses on right now because I need them to see, and I went to the doctor and I got my glasses. Oh great, I can see. Well, if they take my glasses away from me, then I'm going to have trouble. I'm not going to see anymore. And the same can be said about a visual schedule. If that visual schedule is taken away because they were doing a great job at following their schedule, we're taking away that important piece that is helping them along it during the day. So that would probably be one of my very first questions is, are they using a visual schedule with your child? And is it being used appropriately throughout the day? Okay,
and actually the last question we've got in there at the moment is kind of linked to that. You've almost answered it. Is time my child will no longer need a visual schedule? Could talk a bit about as the child gets older, gets to be the teens, what that might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times for us in our special education cooperative, for instance, in our preschool setting, we go in and it has those clip art pictures, those symbol sticks. It's a Velcroed and it's a big list. As they move on throughout that high school setting, it may be a printout of the day that is within their binder that they have access to. It may be the same every day. It may be different every day because there are different changes, but it's stuck within the binder. It's not that cartoony piece that somebody mentioned earlier. It's just typed out. It's written out. I am going to link into my own child for a moment. Telling my child that it is a visual schedule that we need to follow throughout the day, he is resistant to that. But it kind of goes for us, like in my household, from being a visual schedule to a list. This is a list of the things that are going to occur today, or this is a list of things that need to be done throughout your day. Whether it be the homework, it be a class at 1 o'clock, it kind of goes for him, it's gone from a visual schedule to a list, because for some reason he associates that visual schedule as being just a little bit immature. And I don't think there's ever a time we take that away, because as adults, we have our own lists, we have our own schedules. One of the points that I bring up to teachers when I visit them all the time is we have lesson plans. We have lesson plans that we go off every day. And what would happen if I took those lesson plans away from you and had you complete your day? How would that make you feel? And that is the same way for our child. If we take that visual schedule away, it's like taking our planner away as an adult. And that causes increased anxiety. We may not need to ever look at that planner, but we need it there because it reduces our anxiety about our day.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? Please type them in the chat if you have any last minute questions. But if not, I would just like to thank Trina for your time and for a very thorough presentation here. I'm sure that's been very helpful for a lot of the parents who are attending today.